You're pregnant? Marcus's voice cracked, his coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. Yes, isn't it wonderful? I reached across our kitchen table, my hand trembling with excitement. He jerked back like I'd slapped him. No, this wasn't part of the plan. I need to think. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Marcus, wait. I said I need to think. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. My husband walked out the minute I said I was pregnant, then cleared our bank account. Hi, I'm Raina. Today I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. So where do I even begin? 3 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I was married to Marcus, a charming financial advisor who swept me off my feet with his confidence and ambition. We lived in a beautiful suburban home, had dinner parties with friends, and talked about our future late into the night. Well, I talked. Marcus listened, or at least I thought he did. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I'd been feeling queasy for weeks, and when the third pregnancy test showed positive, joy bubbled up inside me like champagne. We'd been married for 2 years, and while we hadn't explicitly planned for a baby yet, I thought it would be a happy surprise. Morning, beautiful, Marcus had said, kissing my cheek as he poured his coffee. He was already dressed in his crisp blue suit, ready for another day at the investment firm. I have something to tell you, I said, unable to contain my smile. Can it wait? I've got the Henderson meeting at 9. It'll just take a second. Sit down. That's when I told him. That's when everything shattered. After he stormed out, I sat at that kitchen table for an hour, staring at his abandoned coffee mug. He'd call, I told myself. He'd text. He just needed time to process. By noon, I'd left 3 voicemails. By evening, 12, each one more desperate than the last. Baby, please call me back. We need to talk about this. Marcus, I'm scared. Where are you? I'm going to Claire's house. Please, just let me know you're okay. Claire, my sister, lived 20 minutes away. She opened the door before I could knock, already in her pajamas despite it being only 7 o'clock. He's not answering, I said, and the tears I'd been holding back all day finally spilled over. Come here, she said, pulling me into a hug. Tell me everything. We sat on her couch, surrounded by her boys' toy trucks and action figures. Claire's husband, David, made us tea while I explained what happened. Maybe he's just overwhelmed, Claire suggested. David freaked out a little when I told him about Tyler. David nodded from the armchair. I went for a really long drive, but I came back that night. Try to get some sleep, Claire said. I'm sure he'll be home when you wake up. But he wasn't. The house was exactly as I'd left it. His coffee mug still on the table, his side of the bed untouched. On day 2, I called his office. Whitfield Investments, how may I direct your call? Hi, Jessica, it's Raina. Is Marcus in? There was a pause. Oh, Mrs. Chen. Mr. Chen called in sick yesterday and today. Is everything all right? Yes, fine, thank you. But everything wasn't fine. That afternoon, I logged into our online banking to check if he'd used our credit card anywhere. What I saw made my knees buckle. Checking account, $0. Savings account, $0. Money market account, $0. $47,000, gone. I called the bank with shaking hands. Ma'am, I show 3 large withdrawals yesterday morning, all authorized with the correct PIN and security questions. But I didn't authorize those. The account holder who made the withdrawals had all the proper credentials. Since it's a joint account, either party can make withdrawals without the other's consent. I hung up and immediately called my best friend Sophia. She was a lawyer, specializing in family law. He can't just do that, I sobbed into the phone. Legally, with a joint account, he can. But Raina, this is abandonment and stealing marital assets. We need to document everything. Screenshot all the bank statements, save his voicemails. Wait, has he left any voicemails? No, nothing. Okay, come to my office first thing tomorrow. Bring everything you have. That night, alone in our empty house, I finally checked his closet. Half his clothes were gone. His expensive watches. His grandfather's cufflinks. He'd planned this. While I was at the doctor confirming our pregnancy, he was planning his escape. The next morning in Sophia's office, she laid out my options. We'll file for divorce immediately, on grounds of abandonment. I'll petition for an emergency support order. But honestly, if he's cleared the accounts, getting money from him will be like getting blood from a stone. I don't understand. We were happy. We talked about kids. When did you talk about kids? I thought back. I talked about them. He always said someday or changed the subject. Sophia's face softened. Reina, I need to ask you something difficult. Has Marcus exhibited any other troubling behavior? Any secrets? What do you mean? Financial secrets, other women, gambling. No, I stopped. There had been things, late nights at the office, calls he'd taken in the garage, the way he'd close his laptop when I entered the room. I don't know. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence, of empty bank accounts, of morning sickness with no one to hold my hair back. Claire and David let me move into their guest room when I couldn't afford the mortgage payment. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Reina? Marcus, where are you? What have you done? I'm sorry. I never wanted kids. You knew that. I didn't know that, and you stole our money. It's my money. I earned it. We're married. That's our money. And what about your child? That's your choice, not mine. Look, I'm calling to tell you I've filed for divorce. You'll get the papers soon. Marcus, please. He hung up. The papers arrived 2 days later. He was generous enough to let me keep the house I couldn't afford and the car I couldn't make payments on. Everything else, he claimed, was his. We'll fight this, Sophia promised. But Reina, you need to prepare yourself. If he's hidden the money well, if he's already spent it, we might not recover much. I was 3 months pregnant, living in my sister's guest room, crying into a pillow that smelled like her kid's bubble bath, when Nina called. Nina worked at Marcus's firm. We'd been friendly, though not close. Reina, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Look, I shouldn't be calling, but there's something you should know. What? Marcus has been planning this for months. He's been moving money around, hiding assets. And there's more. More? Can we meet? Not at the office, somewhere private? We met at a small cafe downtown. Nina looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. I could lose my job for this, she said. Nina, please. I need to know what's going on. She slid a folder across the table. Marcus has been running a side business. Private consulting, he calls it. He's been using company resources, company time. Our boss, Mr. Whitfield, has no idea. I opened the folder. Bank statements, emails, client lists, all for a business that didn't legally exist. This is fraud, I whispered. Not technically. He's been very careful. But it's definitely a violation of his contract. Reina, there's something else. She pulled out her phone, showing me an Instagram profile. This is Vanessa. The woman in the photos was young, maybe 25, blonde, gorgeous. Who is she? She thinks she's his girlfriend, has for the past year. The cafe spun around me. A year? She doesn't know he's married, was married. She posts about him constantly, but never shows his face. Look at this one. A photo of an expensive watch. The caption, "My baby spoils me. #blessed #sugar daddy." I recognize that watch. I'd bought it for him for our anniversary. Why are you telling me this? Nina bit her lip. Because what he did to you isn't right. And because he's been stealing clients from the firm. Mr. Whitfield's clients. If this gets out, the whole company could go under. Dozens of people could lose their jobs. You want me to expose him? I want you to do what's right for you. But if you happen to mention to Mr. Whitfield that his star employee has been poaching clients. I took the folder home and spent hours going through everything. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me. He'd betrayed everyone, his employer, his clients, this Vanessa girl. That night, Claire found me at the kitchen table surrounded by papers. What's all this? I explained everything. She listened, her face growing darker with each detail. That bastard, she finally said. I don't know what to do. If I expose him, he'll definitely lose his job. No job means no income, which means no child support. Reina, honey, he's already not paying child support. She was right. I'd been clinging to some fantasy where Marcus would come to his senses, where he'd want to be part of his child's life. But that man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. First, to Sophia. I have evidence of hidden assets. He's been running a side business. Send me everything. This changes the game completely. The second call was harder. I found Mr. Whitfield's direct number in Marcus's old contacts. Mr. Whitfield? This is Raina Chen, Marcus Chen's wife. I need to speak with you about something important. We met in his office that afternoon. James Whitfield was in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that grew harder as I showed him the evidence. How long has this been going on? At least a year, maybe longer. He was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Chen, I'm very sorry for what you're going through. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. What will you do? What I have to. Marcus has violated his contract, his fiduciary duty, and my trust. I'll be filing charges for corporate theft and breach of contract. 2 days later, Sophia called with news. Marcus's accounts have been frozen pending investigation. The divorce proceedings just got a lot more interesting. But the real fireworks started when Vanessa found out the truth. I didn't contact her. I wouldn't have known how. But Nina, wonderful Nina, made sure she saw a certain LinkedIn article about Marcus Chen being terminated from Whitfield Investments for ethics violations, mentioning his wife's pending divorce. My phone rang at midnight. Marcus, frantic. What did you do? I told the truth. You've ruined everything. My job, my reputation. You ruined everything the day you walked out on your pregnant wife and stole our life savings. Vanessa left me. Good. You're pregnant? Marcus's voice cracked, his coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. Yes. Isn't it wonderful? I reached across our kitchen table, my hand trembling with excitement. He jerked back like I'd slapped him. No, this wasn't part of the plan. I need to think. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Marcus, wait. I said I need to think. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. That moment replayed in my mind as I sat in the courtroom 6 months later. I was showing by then, my hand resting protectively over my belly as the judge reviewed the case. Marcus sat across the aisle looking haggard. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by something off the rack. His lawyer, clearly not the high-powered attorney he'd planned to hire with our savings, shuffled papers nervously. Mr. Chen, the judge said, her voice stern. The evidence shows clear financial misconduct. You've hidden assets, abandoned your pregnant wife, and attempted to leave her destitute. This court finds in favor of Mrs. Chen. The settlement was more than fair. The hidden money was recovered. Most of it, anyway. The house would be sold, proceeds split, but with enough for me to start fresh. And child support enforced by the state, whether he liked it or not. Outside the courthouse, Marcus approached me. Raina, No. I held up my hand. You made your choice. I was scared. I panicked. Maybe we could... Could what? Try again? You left me pregnant and penniless. You cheated. You lied. You stole. There's no coming back from that. But the baby will be loved and cared for. By me, by my family, by people who don't run when things get hard. He stood there, looking lost. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm sure you are. But sorry doesn't undo what you did. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. And sorry definitely doesn't get you back into our lives. I walked away, Claire and David flanking me like bodyguards. In the car, Claire squeezed my hand. You did good, sis. I don't feel good. I feel exhausted. That's normal. But you stood up for yourself, for your baby. 3 months later, I gave birth to Emma. Perfect, tiny Emma with her father's nose and my stubborn streak. Claire was there, and David, and Sophia, who'd become more than just my lawyer. She'd become a true friend. Marcus sent a card. I threw it away unopened. He tried calling when Emma was 6 months old. I've been thinking. I want to be involved. Then pay your child support on time and petition the court for supervised visitation. That's how this works now. Can't we just talk, work something out between us? We had that chance. You threw it away when you cleaned out our accounts and disappeared. He never filed for visitation. I heard through Nina that he'd moved to another state, started over with a new firm that didn't check references too carefully. Last she heard, he was dating another young woman who didn't know his history. Should we warn her? Nina asked over coffee, Emma babbling happily in her high chair. That's not my responsibility anymore. Life moved on. I went back to work, found a reliable daycare, built a routine. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. Emma's first word was Mama. She took her first steps in Claire's living room. She had a village of people who loved her, even if her father wasn't among them. On Emma's second birthday, surrounded by family and friends, toy wrapping paper everywhere and cake on every surface, I realized something. Marcus walking out had felt like the end of the world, but it was actually the beginning of something better, something real. Mama, look! Emma held up a new doll, chocolate frosting in her hair, pure joy on her face. I see, baby. She's beautiful. Like me. Exactly like you. That night, after everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep, I sat in her nursery, thinking about everything that had happened. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the fear. It had all led to this moment, this life. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know you hate me, but I think about you both every day. I made the worst mistake of my life. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Some choices once made can't be undone. And some people, once they show you who they really are, should be believed the first time. Emma stirred in her crib, mumbling in her sleep. I smoothed her hair, whispered a promise that she would always be loved, always be chosen, never be abandoned. The next morning brought a call from Sophia. You're not going to believe this, she said. What now? Marcus is being investigated for fraud at his new company. Apparently, old habits die hard. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just nothing. Raina, you there? Yeah, I'm here. I don't care anymore, Soph. He's not my problem. Good for you. Hey, want to grab lunch? I want Emma to meet someone. Oh? I may have met someone, a pediatrician, single dad, very cute, very kind, very interested in meeting my friend with the adorable daughter. Sophia. Just lunch. If you hate him, we never speak of it again. I looked at Emma, who was feeding her breakfast to the dog. My life was full, complete. I didn't need a man to fix it or complete it. But lunch? Lunch could be nice. Fine, but somewhere with good high chairs. Deal. As I cleaned up Emma's breakfast explosion, I thought about second chances. Not for Marcus, never for Marcus, but for myself, for love, for trust. The thing about toxic people is they teach you what you won't accept anymore. They show you your own strength by forcing you to use it. Marcus thought he was destroying me when he walked out that door. Instead, he'd freed me to build something better. Mama, park? Emma asked, pointing outside. Yes, baby. Let's go to the park. And we did. Just the two of us, perfect in our imperfection, complete in our incompleteness, building a life one day at a time. As Emma chased bubbles across the playground, her laughter filling the air, I wondered something that had been nagging at me for months. Marcus had been so calculating, so careful with his exit strategy. But what kind of person plans their escape the moment their spouse mentions wanting children? So, I'm curious, have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was living a completely different life behind your back?